All right, good morning. Today we're going to be talking about our sliding compound miter saw, commonly called chop saw, though sometimes a chop saw is just exactly that, a miter saw that comes straight down. This is a unique tool, in fact, that this will come out and make a 13.5-inch cut. It will also, push that back, make a 65-degree miter on both sides, a miter cut being an angled cut. It will go on either side. And in addition to that, if you put that back to 0, we can set it up to do a bevel cut, and again in either direction. So it's a sliding compound miter saw because it will do 2 of these at the same time, or all 3. I can put a bevel on it, I can pull it out, I can start my saw, and I can make a cut at any angle that I want. Very useful tool in the shop. But it needs to be used correctly. Okay, first we're going to go over the controls of how to adjust this machine. This knob here is the sliding lock. If I lock it, I cannot pull the saw forward, which is valuable if you're cutting some short pieces. As soon as I loosen it up, I can pull it forward. And in many cases, I want to start the cut here and work the cut backwards. We'll go over more of that later. I like to keep it in the locked position. Usually we're doing less than 6-inch boards. Okay, now we'll go over the miter lock. If you pull the handle up, you have to use 2 adjustments to make this move. You can push it over here and read the scale here. 0 degrees, 5, 10, up to 40. It will go up to 60 degrees, and it won't quite do 65 degrees. And yes, it will go in the other direction, an equal amount right back here. What's important about this is when you get it set, here we have it at a 25-degree angle, set the miter lock down so that the table won't slide during your cut. Pull it up, the lock comes down, there's a detent on the 0 position, put it in the 0 position, lock it up for a straight cross cut. Okay, and lastly, the third major adjustment is the bevel cut. We start by pulling up the brake here, and pulling the pin forward and locking it in the down position so that I can now tip the saw to any angle that I want. Put the pin back in. There are detents. Like here's a detent in 33.9 degrees. Put the brake on. So now I can have a bevel cut. It's really helpful for moldings. There's a lot of reasons to have bevels. Moldings is a good example. Okay, and if I want, I can then, as I said earlier, I can put on any angle that I want, and I can have a sliding compound miter cut with a bevel. Okay, put this back. Now, okay, the best way to handle the knob is to bring it all the way out, 90-degree turn, holds it in the out position. Pull up the brake. You can see it slips down. Put it at the 0 position or near the 0. Put the pin in, and it goes into the detent. Put the brake back on, and we're now fixed back at a 90-degree cut. Okay, that's most of the major adjustments. Now, here's what happens with this. Here's what can happen with this saw. If I want to make a standard cut, I put it up against a fence. These 2 pieces are the fence right here. If you don't put it against a fence and you begin your cut, it snaps it back to the fence like that. It could cause injuries. So you put it back against a fence. Now, this particular board is too wide. I cannot cut it on straight downwards. I have to pull it out and cut it. Loosen up the lock. Pull my saw forward. I'm going to cut that knot off. I'm going to put it all the way out. Push the saw on by pushing this stop button here and pulling the trigger with your fingers. Push it in, pull it. Let the saw come to full power. Hold it with the left hand all the way down. Make the cut and allow the saw to stop while it's down in the track, which is called a throat plate. Okay, when you're cutting a small block of wood like this, and you bring it, if you brought it forward and then cut it on the backstroke, the last piece to get cut is this piece right here. And if the piece is small, it oftentimes gets caught on the saw blade and flings that piece of wood backwards in the shop 20, 30 feet or more with power. So when it's a small piece of wood, we come straight down with a saw. Let me put the lock on, and I'll demonstrate how that's done. We'll just bring it right out here. Saw's on. A straight down cut, so I don't have you see it didn't fly out of the saw. Otherwise, they tend to fly out. Now, on a piece like this, the maximum saw cut is 13.5 inches. You can flip the board over and get a 26-inch cut. I ask my students to come and get me before they do that. It's really hard to get the saw blade to line up. Take the lock off. Again, bring the saw forward. Full power. And it cuts on the backstroke. This saw is designed to cut on the backstroke. Now, some of the safety things that I'm looking for, don't pull the blade guard up like this. And watch the blade. This is a 12-inch blade. This is a big blade. Don't ever touch the blade with your fingers. If you need to spin the blade around, use something like a pencil or a small piece of wood. Don't be doing this. Get in the habit of not touching any of the blades in any of the shops. Some tools have a way of coming on when you least expect it. We'll go over that in another video. This one would probably not because it has a trigger. Nonetheless, it's a good shop practice to get in the habit of never touching the blade, unless, of course, the tool is unplugged. Now, when you're making cuts, you'd also want to turn the vacuum system on. Dust tends to go when the vacuum is on. It works poorly, as you can see. It doesn't collect it very well, but it does collect some. This tool is used for cross-cutting and miter cuts. It's not used for a rip cut. What's a rip cut? Well, let me show you. If you took the board this way and pulled the saw out and tried to attempt that kind of a cut, that's a rip cut. It's with the grain. This is not what this saw is for. This leads to problems. No rip cutting on the crosscut tool. We use a table saw to rip cut. Furthermore, if you wanted to cut this block of wood, you'd be hard-pressed to do it in my class. I insist that my kids have their hands at least one palm width away from the blade. If their hand is a palm width away from the blade, they'll never get cut. So there's not anything like cutting some small piece of wood. You can't be doing it. This saw will hurt you hard. So if I want to cut that off, this would be an unacceptable cut, cutting that knot off. That would be a rip cut. I would be very upset to see anybody do that in my shop. To cut it like this, maybe it's big enough to take a sliver off. It certainly isn't big enough for you to take that kind of a cut because I can't keep my hand away from it. Furthermore, it's good shop practice when you go to make a cut. You're holding it like this. Many of my students hold their board like this. You know what? I like my thumbs. I like my thumbs so much that I've learned to curl them under so it's not out there to have an accident with. I'm using my thumb to push the board back into the fence, just like that. I'm using my fingers to clamp my board down onto the table like that. So it's unlikely it's going to go anywhere. And if it does, I'm going to just drop everything and back up. Demonstrate a miter cut. We'll do here's a 45-degree miter cut. Obviously, I can't do it in one single pass. So, bring it out here, push the button here, pull it with a trigger. Full power, all the way to the bottom. Let the saw come to a stop. Here I have a 45-degree miter. Now, oh, I got a big chunk out of my board. Let's see. That fits really well. Okay. Well, why don't we do that? We'll make another cut in this direction here. Okay, if I was making something like a picture frame, let's see, that's the way they would align. Maybe I can show it better with this. There. If I was making a picture frame, the grain of the wood is going this way, and now it's going down this way. Or if I was framing it around a door, or if I was doing some sort of a molding piece, that would be the 45-degree miter cut that I would need to make. So I've got one on both sides now. Okay. And if I was really fussy about how good a job I wanted it to be, I'd put a very slight bevel, 1 or 2 degrees, 3 degrees, on each cut, so that only the top surface came together. That would be almost guaranteed of having a nice, beautiful joint. Okay, I hope you find this video useful. I hope you learn to use this tool safely and correctly. By following those tips, you can certainly learn to use this tool safely and accurately. Again, woodworking can be a lot of fun, a lot of satisfying hours spent doing it for a lot of people. I hope you all learn to do it without getting hurt.